What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tackbox Podcast. We're recording back on a Tuesday. It's been like 10 days since we recorded because we recorded early last week because Dale is in
Right.
Orlando, Florida. We're doing episode 39 today.
39.
I know. It's like 39 doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you think like we've been doing it for 39 weeks, then it seems a
Yes.
little bit more,
It seems
So
slightly more daunting.
we're going to have to do something for the big 1 year anniversary, like a reflection episode of where we've
There you go,
come for the 1
flashback
year.
of
Yeah.
our favorite stuff, of course.
So how was
Orlando is always wonderful. It's like the Super Bowl of dog shows, and it's like everybody makes their little pilgrimage there. It's like it's great, and it's a wonderful facility. Anybody that hasn't gone should try to go. I mean, and it's lots of judges' education, big entries, end of the year stuff. I had an opportunity to award a best of breed to the dog that ended up going best in show at the national show. So that was pretty cool, and it was great. It was great. Whenever you go, bring comfortable shoes because you're going to do some walking. That would be the one takeaway. It's like I'm walking because everything is distance relative. Thought the prices are pretty reasonable for everything, for flights and everything going there. It's not bad.
Yeah, and they kind of take over Facebook for a couple weeks because like the week leading up, all you see on your feeds is everybody preparing to go and arriving and getting there. And then the week after, it's like I've seen so much like complaining, really complaining about Orlando now or win photos, things like that. But like having never been there before or really paying too close to attention, it was like the grooming booths looked like all decked out. They like that place was like
Yeah,
massively decked out. It looked good.
massively. And one thing I thought was really cool, I've noticed that the first year I went was the show pictures. Because the show photographers bring it. And you have multiple options of different then the backgrounds and the backdrops are just beautiful, colorful, pretty, and they just look so nice. It makes the stuff at the regular shows where they just have like some battleship gray tarp thrown over the bleachers. Looks really sad and kind of depressing. I mean, because here they have beautiful backdrops. These are gorgeous pictures, and they're just like eye candy, and kind of makes you think like, if I'm gonna buy a picture, I'd like it to look like that. And people would like pick around whose backdrop they liked or what they wanted to, and they were really pretty. The pictures are really, really nice. The photographers bring an A game there.
I've always kind of thought that like with photographers is like a lot of the shows that I go to in the Midwest here is like the photographers just have something shanky set up and it's like I can go outside and find better backdrop and take a picture with my phone than I can get from the show photographer half the time. But you know,
Well,
it's
no,
cool
that's
that
something that has really changed. That's changed a lot because at one point in time, the official show photo was such a big deal, and now I think the prices are so high. And then I mean, I don't even exactly, other than the fact that there's an upcharge for convenience, where they're charging more to send you a digital picture than it is to send you a paper copy.
yeah.
I mean,
Isn't that
why?
weird?
Why other than upsell? Why would you do that? I mean, the
I mean
digital
the only
copy
purpose
should,
is because everybody's gonna order that, so they're gonna make
it's
more money.
faster, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, everybody's phones are so good have such good cameras. Like, I don't know. Last few dogs I finished, I don't even know if we took show pictures. I mean, they're just like, I don't know. We can get a pretty nice picture, as good as you want, there and for free.
Yeah.
Why why do I wanna pay $60 or whatever?
Well, that's like even some of like the I was going through some show photos, some photographer websites from Texas in May because I wanted some pictures of one of your dogs, and so I was looking through the win photos, and it was just like gosh dang, 35, $40 a piece. And it's like, you get, you take 3 different poses and it's like $150 for photos. Like, yeah, no, I'll just, go without because that's a lot of money for a couple different pictures, of a dog.
Well, I mean, and honestly, when when taking pictures was a bigger deal, and you might only really have one or two show pictures to kind of signify that dog's whole career. That those pictures were important. They were more important, and I think that people like you want that official win picture with the judge, and and the da 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 da. Now, I don't know. People are more inventive, and they want more creativity, and they're not just a dog standing on the table with two people standing there. They're wanting a little bit more. And so I don't know as if, you can get, and some of the photographers are super good. And like I say, Orlando, they're all good. They're good.
I would assume they bring in the best of the best for a show like that.
Yeah, I don't know how they come up with that, but they do a really nice job, and those are really good pictures. So kudos for that. So what are we talking about today?
Well, today I was thinking, all last week is like I had longer to think about what we wanted to do this episode. And one of the things that just kept popping up into my mind is probably because it's something I'm going through right now and something I'm struggling with is, and maybe not struggling with, but it's a priority in my kennel right now, and that's expansion. So I wanted to talk about kennel expansion and smart ways to grow your breeding program. There's so many avenues that we can go down with this, but we did have a comment that we can kind of play off of as well and address through this
Okay.
conversation. So I guess
Well,
what I
I
want to
think,
kind of pick your brain on is like, how does
how do
somebody
you know when to
know
grow?
what? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of going about adding to your program, and I mean, the part of it is, you get a nice bitch, maybe you get her finish, you get your first litter out of her, and do you need to keep something from that first litter? Is that important? Can you let those go? Can you breed her again? I mean, because a lot of times people will go ahead and say, "Oh gosh, I'll go ahead and I'll breed her next time and keep something back." And honestly, especially with toy dogs or breeds that are with a little bit more conceptually challenged, we're not guaranteed to get a next time. So sometimes when that rolls around and it's looking good, you probably kind of should jump on it. I know that one of my own bitches that I kept a girl puppy out of her this last time, and I kind of like, well, I was going to breed her again and such and such. Maybe I should let that go. I'm like, nah, I'm just going to keep it. Well, this next time I bred her, she's did not have a good litter. That they low birth weight. They was not just didn't work. And I'm kind of thinking, I'm sure glad I kept that girl back out of her. And I'm kind of like, she's at the age now where I'm just going to move her into the retirement zone rather than to try to see if I can again see if is this our new normal? Is she just not gonna carry the puppies as far, not gonna do as well with them. But it doesn't matter because I have kept that girl back from that last litter, so she can just hasta la vista, head off to her little pet home. So yeah, there is a lot to be said about taking those opportunities when they present themselves. And a lot of times those earlier litters have your better puppies. I mean, that's on those younger, fresher bitches. But you kept from your first litter, didn't you?
Wow, this is all is like is very breed specific too. I feel like just to kind of add on to what you're saying, because it's like in Japanese chin, we might have 3 puppies. All 3 might be boys. You might not have the option to take a girl, or
Right?
so like my very first litter, 4 boys, and
Four boys.
it was
Boy,
like, well, what do you do? Well, I kept one back. We'll grow him out. We'll see if his testicles drop or what he turns into, and go from there. But we'll breed her again and see what she produces. And then my next litter, 2 boys and 1 girl. Well, I was gonna keep the girl, and then I decided to sell the girl, and now I'm kinda like, I don't know if I should have sold the girl or not because, yeah, I can breed her again, but like you just said, first litter is always first couple of litters are always the best, but what if her next litter is all boys? And then her 3rd litter comes down to she puts out a mismarked girl and 2 boys. You never know. It's just like you kind of
You
do
have
have to
to
jump on it.
you really do roll the dice. I mean, that's probably the reason you don't need to go to the casino if you're breeding dogs, because there's a fair amount of gambling going on at any given time. That whole point of like not knowing, is this going to be the litter to keep from? Is this not? If you really like a puppy, yeah, you should might jump on that. I have a litter that was born the other day, and I have like 6 girl puppies. And I was like, there's a really nice girl in there. I wasn't really thinking about keeping anything out of it, but what are the odds of having 6 perfectly marked girl puppies again? I'm like, you should keep from that. That's might not happen again. Probably won't happen again. Statistically very unlikely to happen again. So there is a lot to be said about when you hold back. And some breeds have a longer shelf life than others. So a lot of toys, brachycephalics, some of the spaniel breeds, by the time they're 5 years old, they're like done. But I have had friends that had breeds like, poodles and shelties, and they're considerably older, you know, and they're having puppies and litters later on in life, and that's okay for them, you know. So I mean, once when you kind of got to know your breed a little bit, like what are my odds? What are my chances of getting, how many more cracks at this am I going to get? Like with French bulldogs or something like that, where everything's a C-section, and it's just it's an outlay of money and time. And there's just such a super finite number. If if you get that right bitch puppy early, but hold on to it. Don't like let it go. But there are a couple of things that you can do, because kind of like when you figure the number of dogs you want to breed, that you want to have in production at your time, like how much time do I have? How much room do I have? What's my infrastructure look like? Then you have to kind of think, what do I need to, what can I have growing out? Because that's really what separates out the breeders, is how many dogs they grow out and raise out. Because, I mean, the people who are in it to win it, they're growing stuff out. They always got something
Planning
growing
ahead.
out. You're planning for the next thing. You don't just get up there and go, here we are. And then it's like, oh, and now I need, because it's not like running over to Walmart or Costco because you ran out of something. It might take you 2 years to have this exactly what you need to carry on for the next few years with. Planning ahead and having the space allotted, because you don't want all of your dogs to be the exact same age. Because like one day you're running a nursery, kindergarten class, next, and like in a blink of an eye, you have a retirement home filled with geriatric seniors, because they all aged out together. That's so. I mean, if you have them staggered in age, that's a good way to keep your numbers under control. The other thing that you can do is there's something called, it's been fairly recent, but it's been going on for a while. Certain kennels have utilized it, and they call it a guardian home. And some folks have found that they can go ahead and take their females and put them in basically a pet home, the right pet home, where there's someone that's experienced with their breed, lives close enough to them, has the right situation, super trustworthy, and that they will get it back to you to breed. And that's something that's done. It can be done, and that doesn't directly add to your numbers. I mean, because that dog is, except for when it's got babies on it, it's with them. And some people do that in such a way, like they're going to breed it whatever the number of times are, and then the dog is given to them, as a spay to live out the rest of his life. So I mean, technically, that's a really good deal, because you're going to get the puppies from this dog. Its dog's going to have a great life as a pet, and what could go wrong with this? A lot. A lot of things could go really wrong with this. These people could move. Anything could happen to to this situation where this dog might not be available to you again. These people, this dog living as a pet, pets, things happen with pets. Pets get out of the yard. Pets get bred to the neighbor's labradoodle. Pet, the kids do stuff with the pet. Things happen. I mean, and then when you have this dog that you're breeding and whelping and doing all this with, you also have someone's cherished pet now, because there's not enough stress and pressure just to take care of your own dog and get through the whelp and the litter. Now they're worried to death about her. And of course, that means something is probably going to happen. And so you really need to have super good contract. I've seen several of them, and you need to have a really good understanding with these people and you have to be willing to go, if it doesn't work out, I'm okay. If something happens and I lose that bitch, she, gets bred, something goes wrong, something whatever happens, I'm okay. I'll make it through this. Is not going to crush my breeding program. You really have to, and I think the other thing is those guardian homes, those foster families, you have to have really good communication. Like, you have to be on them. You got to really stay on those people. You don't just kind of wait to have them call. Yeah, because they don't know. Like, it's been this many months. She should be coming in heat anytime now. I mean, blah blah blah. This is what we need to look for. They have really keep close tabs on that. Otherwise they're gonna. Oh, yeah, she was in heat. Well, maybe she was in heat, or maybe that wasn't it. And you know,
I mean,
I
if a
mean, you
dog
can.
if it's kind of a pet home situation, they don't have another dog in there. I mean, female dogs I've seen multiple that clean themselves really good, and you don't even know they're in heat unless you're checking, you know?
Right.
They keep
And
themselves clean and
how
tidy
many
and
people, non-breeder people, are checking that closely?
yeah, no, not no one. Do you see is there really any situations out there where you send a show dog to a guardian home, or is it more a co-ownership and then my name comes off of it once you finish the dog type of situation? Like, how would say I want to breed show dogs but guardian home them? Does that happen a lot? Because I want to keep my numbers down.
It does, especially in larger breeds where, I mean, we're kind of pretty lucky because we're spoiled, because our little dogs are like, you know, guinea pig problems, right? It's like the guinea pigs are revolting. It's not that big. There you go. We've solved the problem. But where you have big dogs, you have bigger stuff. So if you're going to put larger dogs into this larger situation, where they're going to be, because larger dogs do better in, more individual situations, right? Um, I think to myself, like, my beloved little Samson, who is just so happy to see me after I was going to Orlando. He did the happy dance and all of that. And I think, oh, I wouldn't take $1 million for him. And then I think I wouldn't give $5 to have another one. Yeah, I mean, as I'm tripping over him and all that. It's like, so yeah, big dogs is a big part. It's a big presence. There is the guardian homes on those larger dogs. But when you're talking show dogs, now you're talking, you've invested thousands of dollars in this dog, and you're counting on these people to keep it alive, keep it safe, to get it to you, to have all of this stuff. I mean, you really have to have a plan, and you have to have a realistic, because, I don't know about you, but everybody thinks that an idea is great at the time. It's kind of like you got some activity going on, and everyone's like, "We should do this again. We'll do it. We'll do it every week. Let's do such and such," and everyone's all jazzed up. And then it's like, and then about 48 hours later, going, "Oh, hell no! I don't want to ever do that again. I'm tired. It's way more trouble than I thought." So, you might really have an idea as how many litters do you actually think that you're going to go get this dog and bring it back and do it, and keep this dog from them for about, uh, you know, they're gonna be
2
away
to
from
3
their dog
months,
for
you know?
about 3 months. About three
Yeah.
months. They're gonna have it for a couple of weeks while you're getting it bred, probably like a week or so before it whelps, because they're not whelping it for you. You do the whelp, and then you're gonna have the 8 weeks. You know, 3 months. So it's like you can have this dog for 9 months of the year, but 3 months of the year it's mine, unless you're wanting to breed it twice in that year. I mean, so that kind of thing. I mean, you really have to have a kind of an understanding with these people up front. Some people go ahead and do maybe let them maybe pay people a portion of like the price of some of the money on the puppies. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff in there, but the more expensive the dog, the higher risk you're taking when you're letting someone else take it. I mean, and how irreplaceable that dog is. Cause, I mean, when you've gone ahead and like, this is my female that passed its OFAs and its show quality, and I've invested in showing him, and you know, I mean, so as you turn that loose, that's harder. The other thing you can do is a co-ownership. If you where you go ahead on guardian homes, you maintain the full ownership of the dog. They have no ownership of the dog. They are just a caregiver for an agreed price of no money. And they're going, and a lot of times they'll even go ahead and you'll pay for the shots. You might even, sometimes people will provide food if they want them fed a certain way. I mean, all of these little details, it has to be ironed out in advance. But a co-ownership is kind of another whole arrangement that people do to expand their breeding program, not keep all the dogs, maybe not sell a female. Maybe they'll say, I'm gonna let you take it. You're gonna spend some money on it, and then we're gonna breed it. We're gonna split. Some breeds, toy dogs, that's hard again, because I just had a litter born with a super dear friend of mine this morning, and there was and of course, and there's the obligatory $2,500 C-section, and she finished the bitch. It's a lovely bitch, and she's like, here's your puppy, Dale. And it's like this beautiful little female, like a little cloud from heaven. And then hers, which had the brains on the outside that they had to euthanize because it was like a little monster puppy. I was like going, okay, so I mean, this is my super good friend. We'll work something out. We'll do something, because like for me, always if I do a co-ownership or anything like that, the friendship and the relationship exceeds the value of the dog by far. But if the value of the dog is the crux of this, then you really have to think long and hard, because like in some breeds, like in toy breeds and markings breeds, there might not be enough to share. And then that can be a big problem. If you want to hear how people got into a big fight, you know, it started out with, well, we co-owned this dog, and they're like, here we, now we all hate each other and we can't be in the same room. And so those are, I mean, you can expand, but you have to be really, really, really sure about how you're going to do it. And you have to really be, every deal has to have a beginning, a middle, and then an end. And on co-ownerships, the end should come as quick as possible. You know, guardian homes are, the end is when the dog is done being bred, whatever that's going to be. If it's 1 litter or 5 litters, that's you set in advance. But co-ownerships, should really have they should have a conclusion of that, because those multiple ownership dogs, it's like any other title piece of property. You're all equally owners, and so you're equally responsible. So anything that goes wrong, you're equally on the hook for, good or bad. So I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios where that could be a thing.
I mean, I feel like co-ownership could go wrong really fast, really easily. And I kind of like what you said and agree with what you said there too. Is it's like before you enter into co-ownership with somebody, is like, is that relationship with that person more important than the dog? Because if it is,
So
then you'll probably be fine. Now you can work
you're
through
probably
it.
fine.
But
Yeah.
if that relationship's not more important to you than the dog, I wouldn't even go into a co-ownership with them because, I mean, and some breeders force that on people like, I'm gonna co-own this dog until you finish it, and then you can take my name off of it, type of thing. So they get, a champion, which, I mean, depending on how bad you want a dog, I guess you're gonna do that. I think it's a little sketchy, but that's just personal
Well,
opinion. I'm gonna let
it's
you
just
buy a
like,
dog from me, but you have to keep my name on it until you finish it. It's your dog though,
mm,
and you pay for it.
well, and I mean, and so like, what if the dog doesn't finish? What if you go ahead and you enter all these shows and it doesn't finish for luck or better competition, just whatever, or maybe like, I mean, I had a dog many years ago, really pretty dog, and this super nice lady. I want to show it. I've always wanted to show, and we used to show this. And I thought she was at the show, and the dog just wasn't winning. And I'm thinking, have I lost my mind? I thought this was such a nice dog. Well, then I get a video of what the dog looks like at the show, and oh my God, you know, he's not bathed, he's not groomed. He's standing around like a feral little thug, pissing on the table while the judge is going over the other dog. And this lady she is like the worst handler I've ever seen. She basically drops the dog off the table. I thought, oh my God, he's gonna be dead or broken. He'll never, And she showed that dog probably 15 weekends or something like that. I mean, a lot of shows with no real results, and he looked awful. And and then I took the dog back home. Honest to Pete, I entered him in 3 weekends. I finished him in 2 weekends, and sent him back home the third. But it's kind of like I want when people say, "Well, they want to show it." I'm like, I'd like to see what you can do. I want to see you in action, because is this a good enough dog to finish? I had never bred a dog good enough for that lady to finish. She's lovely, but really bad in the ring. And so, all of this kind of thing in there is like, if it's super important that the dog finishes, then maybe instead of worrying about a co-ownership, you should say, you know, by the time the dog is ready for the open class, it's going to get put with a professional handler who's gonna show it to its title type of thing, and, I mean, you never know for a fact, but, honestly, if it's a reasonably good dog and if it's being shown professionally or at least good, it should be able to obtain a title. But all of these scenarios can absolutely roll around, and that particular dog, that was a very important dog for me to get finished, so, I mean, I paid for the dog to come. I paid for the dog's entries. I paid for all of that because she's like, nope, he's not good enough. He's just not good enough to finish. I've shown him all these shows. I'm like, yeah, I've seen. I get it. He's not good enough for you to finish. I can finish him. You can't. I'll pay for it because I really wanted him to finish. His for a production title for his mother. But it was one of those kind of things. So, and in hindsight, I could have gone ahead and just finished the dog myself and maybe placed him afterwards, maybe let him take afterwards. It would have been much less drama, than to try to have to like pull the dog back and try and get it. So, I mean, you really, if showing is part of a co-ownership, really think long and hard about that. You know, if breeding's part of a co-ownership, kind of like figure out exactly what this dog is going to do. Is this primary thing going to be a breeding dog? Like, I really want a puppy out of this. Like, if it finishes, that's great. If it doesn't, I'm okay with that too. Then really the focus should be, I want it bred. I want this. I want that. You know, do you have a repo vet? Do you have access to progesterone? You know, are you willing to get the dog to me, when it's in heat, no matter what, if that means you have to snowmobile it over across the Great Divide, then you will do it. All of that kind of stuff kind of comes into figure. So, as to making those arrangements work.
Yeah, and I mean, part of like just thinking about your kennel and expanding is also like what are you breeding for? What's the purpose of the expansion? And so like some of my mindset even with this last litter, and I had a girl and I decided not to keep her, was the amount of dogs in the space that I have because of an upcoming litter that I have. So it's like I chose not to keep a girl back there because it was like, well, I got Daisy that's coming into heat that I want to breed, which I'm probably going to grow out every single puppy from her to see what they turn into longer. So it's like I need space for that too. So
Space is
you can
huge.
it's
It's
yeah.
huge. You have to
So
you have to say, how many can I train? How many can I socialize? How many can I house? All of that comes into play. I mean, that's where the whole numbers game comes in. It all gets real there. That's when I think one thing, and breeders tend to hate keeping males. Oh God, they just like you. And if someone's been breeding for any length of time, they just really go to a lot of effort not to have to keep males. And I guess because I've always maintained a kennel, I've kept males. And so I've bred a lot of bitches for other people. But the if you're keeping back a boy, is it something that we're just going to keep and finish, or going to keep it long term? How applicable is it to all of these dogs that you have in here? I mean, like with your particular bitch, I think you had a sister. Her sister was coming at you. He had a lot of the same breeding, and it was out of your male. So it's kind of like, that's this. I want to keep something that might be from out that I can use with all of my dogs, because you really want that dog that has the biggest impact on all of your dogs. Like, I keep this back, I can only breed it to this way, or I'm going to have to breed it out of my kennel because it's too related to everything I have. And that's what they call getting boxed in or cornered in, and that can put you in a pretty compromised situation pretty fast.
yeah, and then even things like when we're talking about space, the factors that go into space when you're thinking about expanding, like what is your puppy market like for pet homes? What if
Hmm.
not every dog that comes out is going to be a show dog? So if you have a breed that's putting out
Most are not. Yeah.
right, if you have a toy breed that you're putting out two, three, a litter of four, and none of them are show quality that you want to keep back. Now you got, do
Happens.
you have, can you get homes, or are you going to be growing these puppies? I mean, I know a chin breeder that's ends up not selling them very well and has to grow them out till she sells them. And it's like, you got to have space to do that too. So you have to think about the breedings. And if this bitch
Yeah.
has four puppies, do I have the room to grow it out? I kind of I feel like I have the opposite issue is like, I want to expand my kennel for breeding purposes of I want to be able to keep more, like physically
Right.
keep more back for showing and for future growth. But I also want to be able to produce more because I have people that want puppies. I have a steady inflow of
It's
people wanting puppies. So
this is a natural progression. If you're doing a good job, if you have a demand for what you're producing, and there's like, then I mean, then that's, I mean, as much as you can do. This is so individual. Like, some people can have a child and do it, and they can make that work. Some people can go ahead and have four, six, eight of them, and they can make it work. But I tell you, it's the bigger you get, the harder you're working, and you're gonna have, so it really depends. Like, if I have the potential for the growth, I have infrastructure, I have interest, I have interest, I want to do this, and so, okay, I'm gonna do more. You know, but if you get to the point like, I've got other things I'm going to do, I don't want to do as much, then you really have to scale your sights to what your next 24 months looks like. Keeping in mind, this could change, but honestly, the natural progression of it is, hey, you got a successful thing going. You're doing well showing, getting people wanting your puppies. You want to start adding to your puzzle, to making your program, optimize, because the more you put into it, and the more you have, the better you're going to do. You're more opportunities. You're going to be more. You're going to. It's all going to come. Everything good is going to come to you more. Everything bad is going to come to you more too. I mean, you're going to have more expenses. You're going to have more work. You're going to have more of this. You're going to have every. It all comes, more is more. Good and bad. And as long as you can deal with it, it's awesome. I think you should breed as much as you enjoy and that you want to, and you can do a good job. If you can do a good job, then with then do it, do all you can, you know, and then but when you feel it's like a pressure, a stress, like you're not doing as good a job, back that off. You know, be honest with yourself. It's like, I didn't do that great. I didn't get these puppies trained. I didn't get them as socialized. You know, because growing them out isn't just keeping them from being eaten by coyotes and put food down. That is not growing them out. That's sustaining life. That's like children of the 60s and 70s. We had life sustained. We had food. Today's parents are more like the, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your, well, let's go, we're all going to go to look at colleges, you know. And then it's like, that's a more optimized child today, you know. And the same thing with your puppies. So the more you put into them, the better success rate, the more stardom is going to be achieved, you know. And I think that you really have to give an honest evaluation of that. But growth is wonderful. I mean, I love to hear people, you know, their plans as to how they're going to go on and what they're hoping to hold on to and their next three generations of breedings. It's very exciting.
Well, and even beyond that is like as a person or a family, like how much how much are you willing to do to grow your program? And what I mean by that is like your area of the country, like in a situation we're in currently is like we can only house so many on the property that we live on now. So if we want to grow and expand our kennel program, it's going to require us grow and expand our property. Well, we're kind of locked in, so it would be moving. So then it's like, are
Sure,
you willing to take that step? Are you willing to, you know, go to a different state
100%.
or go to a different property? Can you afford to do that? Can you, and I think that's a lot of what you have to be able to think about too is like not only the room that you have, but if you want to expand, can you expand where you're at? Or does it require
Well,
a family move
I
or
mean,
a state move?
this is all just like a rhinestone cowboy Glenn Campbell song. You know, you got a load of compromising on the way to your horizon. You know, I mean, there's a whole lot of choices you have to do. And if you got big plans, you're going to take bigger risks. Bigger risks equal bigger rewards, you know. And I mean, every move we've ever done, and there's been a lot, short of having a gypsy wagon and telling fortunes town to town. We've moved quite a few times, but every time we've moved, it's been for a better facility, a better place, a better opportunity. And, you know, of course, like in certain places where you're going to have climate constrictions where it's like you're not going to be able to do this and this during the end. Well, you probably don't want to breed a whole lot of puppies if you can't get something flown out, that kind of thing. If travel is restricted, well, then that's probably should be seasonal, that type of thing. All
Or
of
even
those things
working
kind
with
of come
them,
into play.
if you have winter for 6 months out of the year where it's, up here in South Dakota, it's like you might not be taking a dog outside to work with them from November through March, well, do you have an indoor facility then at that point where you can work with them? Because the dogs still need work.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
there's so many things to think about when you're thinking about growth, and hopefully that kind of brings some of them up. But it's all the things that you have to weigh out, like what's most important for your program, and what do you want? Where do you want to see your program? And then kind of just logically thinking like, what are the steps to take to get where you want to be? But always thinking ahead, where do you want to be in 2 years? Like you said, the 24 months.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
in your tenure in the dog world, maybe even some things that you've done yourself, but, like, what mistakes have you seen with people trying to expand their kennels?
Well, I mean, I think the big thing is get sometimes like when you're getting dogs, it can be like you're ordering something and they told you that there's a limited supply and that this is all there's going to be, and it's going to be really hard to get from now, and they kind of people get like, I better get it, I better do it, I better jump on this. And so I think the biggest mistake that you're going to see is people getting the dogs and getting the stock and creating the puppies before they have the infrastructure of where they're going to live, how they're going to take care of them, and equally, if not more important, how they're going to get in place. Because you can be up to your eyeballs really fast, and so it really can happen quickly. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I went to go look at for a certain a cream colored golden retriever, and the lady had litters, and she had grown some out, and she was like, "Oh, can you come look?" Da 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 da. So we went over there, and it was probably 50, 60 golden retrievers of probably 4 or 5 litters that she had grown out. And they were just like a big feral herd of blonde buffalo. And I thought to myself, well, they're nice dogs. No one's gotten a lead on them. That's going to be hard. Everything dealing with these animals is going to be hard. And she thinks that they have this value because she grazed them out. And she's like, and I'm moving because such and such. And I'm like, good luck to you on that. Because, at this point, these dogs are I'm not saying, I don't want to say rescue like they weren't in danger, but who the hell wants them? What a nightmare. It's like that's not a winnable situation. You know, so you really have to have all the infrastructure. It's like where you're going to keep them, how you're going to deal with them, how you're going to do it, and then are you going to get them sold, get them placed? Have all of that done before you start keeping and doing more breeding, because people get excited, want to breed them, get charged up here, and I think you can choke on your own ambitions on that, and kind of end up doing. I don't think anybody ever intends to get in over their head. You know, they think it's all good up until it's not, and all of a sudden go, wow, we're totally out of control here. And that all of this comes to, I've got to vaccinate all of these dogs, and now I've got a round of kennel cough going through with all these dogs. And I mean, it's all of a sudden now a kennel is like a small city. You have the very young, you have the very old, you have birth to death, you have it all going on there right there. And before your city expands, you better run it by the planning board and kind of figure out that you have the budget and have it all in place before you go off to do it, because it's gonna end up being your responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I wish, I mean, especially for new people, it's like you have such great ambitions and maybe you don't even know what to expect. It's like when I got my first chin, like I wasn't expecting to fall in love with showing and wanting to do a
Mhm.
kennel. And then as you start growing, it's like you're not necessarily thinking 2 years ahead. You're thinking like, yeah, I want to do this now. That's fun. That sounds fun. Let's do it. And then it's like you talked about earlier, it's like I kind of got locked in a little bit with ages at the same type of ages because I went 100% right away. And it's like, wow, cool. I got 4 dogs that are all the same age. I finished them all, and now I got nothing to show this year, this coming year.
Right.
And then, they're all the same age. So it's like they're all going to be breeding at the same time. And then you got that
Sure.
waiting period to grow more out. And then they're all
Do I
going to,
wanna do 4 of them at once? Yeah.
yeah. And then they're all going to, be seniors at the same time. So, I mean, thankfully, I'm learning early enough in the process of like, getting younger dogs and so it's like as these age, there's younger ones coming in and stuff. But, that would be like one of my biggest things that I wish I would have thought of at the beginning or known at the beginning is like be planning 2 to 5 years in advance of where you want to be and where you want to go. And so you can always be thinking like, how do I get there? Or this dog is serving this purpose for the next however long, and just being able to adapt because whatever you think might happen in 2 years might not. And something might pop up and it might just be like, I gotta go and I gotta go now. And I need to expand and I need to expand now. Or I need to slow down and I need to slow down now, whatever the case, your scenario might be. Or you might be in a scenario where you got 20 golden retrievers in a two-bedroom house, you know? Like, you might
Well,
need to slow down a little bit.
I think that one thing that the breeders have an obligation to be able to see around the corner a little bit. Sometimes you have to protect people from themselves. And somebody might be saying, "Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that." And you're kind of going, "Have you thought that through? Have you given that, I mean, more than this week? Have you thought, what exactly does that look like? And are you going to be able to?" People will get excited and they'll jump on something without really giving it a lot of thought as to what's this obligation of time going to be, what's this obligation of money going to be, what exactly do I have this plan, do I have this set up in space. I mean, because you if you go ahead and park dogs with people because you're trying to keep your program open and viable and keep dogs, whether, make sure that they're people that are in control of their situation and they know exactly what they're doing, because you might have to go in and all of a sudden, over the years, several times I've had people that I've gotten started, I've helped, and then get the phone call that they've had some tragedy or another, this or that or the other thing. And can you take dogs back? And you're like, oh, yeah, sure. And you're thinking of a couple of dogs that they got from you 5 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, no, there's, 27 of them, you know, and we need to bring them tomorrow." You go, "Whoa, really?" Because you don't ever really know what someone else has got going on. You know what they're telling you they got going on, but as the breeder of those dogs and the one who's gonna take the is ultimately responsible and all that, so now you've got this situation to clean up, and it's got your name all over it. And although you didn't directly do it, you enabled somebody who was not prepared to get themselves into a situation that they can't get out of. And now you have a responsibility. And that happens periodically. I mean,
Well, and
I've
that's one of those, like, things that could go wrong, but it also sparks another thought that as a kennel owner, breeder, that you should be thinking about is do you have a spot to isolate a dog if something happens and you get a dog back? Because you don't know if you're getting a dog, like, somebody's got to get a dog that you bred 3 years ago, or a puppy that you sold 3 years ago, needs to come back because of whatever scenario the person had. Well, is it coming back with kennel cough and going to wipe out your whole parvo and going to wipe out your whole kennel? Like, you need to have a spot to isolate that dog and vaccinate it and make sure that it's good before you let it around the rest of your herd. So that's something to even keep in mind too, is like, if you're busting at the seams right now, well, imagine if that phone call happens and you got to bring in two dogs that, you know,
absolutely.
that is another one of those things that you have to think about.
You have to absolutely, like, the little dog that was rescued on our road that got live trapped and all that, you know, I mean, he's been living out there running with the coyotes for a couple weeks, probably their gang leader. And it's like, so this got to be vaccinated. It's got to be wormed. This is, you don't just like pick this up and go, oh, I'm going to be a good Samaritan and bring this home and you have an obligation to the health of your little city. You've got, like, no little, immigrants coming from the wilds coming in there. You've got to be really careful as to what you bring in, and the health of your colony depends on how judicious you are on that. Because
Uh,
you can take a hit.
and another thing that I didn't think a whole ton about that is really hitting home now, even, is just like, how much breeding do you want to do while you're showing, and who's gonna watch your dogs while you're out showing? Like, that's a
Huge.
big thing. Like, do you have somebody, when we had 5 dogs and we were showing, it was like, "Oh, we can take all the dogs with us, no big deal."
Sure.
Once you get to
Sure.
a certain amount of dogs that you can't take with you to every show, like, well, who's going to watch the dogs? So that's another aspect of things of where you might determine to put your kennel or how big you let your kennel get is like, are you breeding all the time and going to have dogs around all the time that need to stay back while you're out showing and you're going to be gone for 4 days? Who's going to feed those dogs? Take care of them, let them out. Like another aspect to just think about that a lot of times you don't think about until it's time to like, oh, I want to go to this show in 2 months. Well, crap. Who's going to watch all these dogs? Shit. I don't know. I
Right.
didn't think
Well,
about that.
someone there's always something like, if you're going to plan on being gone or you've got a whole bunch of things on there, then you're either paying for help, you are doing something where you have this all in advance and you're paying for it. I mean, one way or another, because that's something that is not cool. You don't take breeding animals to the show to whelp. That's not cool. And if you have dogs that are needing bread, luckily we have a little community of people that we will help each other out. Like you're going to be going here, I'm going to be going there. We can kind of like spot each other and up in advance. Like, okay, I have a litter due. I'm going to be gone. I've got to call into the vet. They're going to be available for a section if need be. All of this stuff has to be done. Like while I was in Orlando, I had a bitch that needed to be bred, and Rick went over and got my bitch bred, and all of that. So I didn't miss out on that while I was gone. But you have to have all of those things in place. You know, there has to be those people. You have to have all of that there to be able to make that happen. Because actually, having the dogs and the kennel and the breeding in itself is a whole that's a job, a business, a 24/7, all inclusive, all hands on deck in. Then showing, traveling, this, that, that's a whole nother type of thing. So I mean, if you can only be 100% on one thing or another. And so you have to go ahead and kind of figure out, what's gonna give. Who's gonna make the plan. Because almost anytime I hear someone's tale of tragedy and all their problem, it starts out with the line, "I was gone to the show and then here goes the whole saga of how, death, destruction, despair, thousands of dollars, everything was lost, blah, blah, blah." But ultimately, your fault. You were gone. You knew this was happening. You know, you chose to roll the dice. You lost. Sorry. You know, that's how.
Yeah. So, I mean, and there's a lot to think with that. Or even if I mean, I think any responsible breeder and we've talked about this before on very one of our very first episodes where we talked about numbers of dogs and not hoarding and things like that. But when you're talking about kennel expansion and how much you can have, but it's like, what if something happens to you? Something you got to think about. Like, what if something does? Like, if you get in a car wreck and you're laid up in the hospital for 2 weeks, like who's gonna come handle your kennel while you're gone? Like, you gotta have a plan like that in place before you expand too far and grow too big is like, who can actually do this? If you got 1, 2 dogs at home and, you know, neighbor can watch them for a little bit or a friend or something, but if you got a 20 run kennel, and that's a full-time job, you can't expect people just to automatically pick that up because got laid up in the hospital for a couple weeks. So there's a lot to like really think about beyond I need more space to breed these dogs and sell puppies. There's a lot of aspects to kennel expansion.
Many, 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 like for like Jane and I at our point of life, where we're thinking, how many more years of being able to do it. We keep young animals. We don't keep, we don't keep many old animals. It's not a good plan, because should anything happen to us and should our circumstance change and we're not able to continue, it's way easier to rehome younger animals. People want them. It's way easier. People want that. That's a no-brainer. It's not, it's a little harder saying, "Oh, would you like to have, you know, 12-year-old Samson, he's nocturnal. He doesn't, he's up all night. He barks. He doesn't do fences. He's just learning how to do doors, and sometimes he'll blow you into the room. That not every home is going to be perfect for him. And so when you have old dogs that are on medication, has certain needs and all this and stuff, and they're more expensive to keep, you know, so they're not a highly sought after commodity. And
Yeah.
so that's something that when you think to yourself, well, what am I keep, what am I keeping? What am I doing? Oh, am I gonna keep this dog, 15 years? Am I gonna sign up and say that I'm gonna be able to do this for 15 years? And after that, am I gonna take another one for 15 years? That kind of thing. You really have to kind of have the plan in place.
Yeah, I think I mean, that's really is just sitting and thinking through the plan and what you have in place for long term because these dogs can, like you said, how old are you and how old are your dogs that what is their life expectancy? 'Cause if you're going to be breeding a lot and these dogs might outlive you, it seems like the dog breeding world is a little, I mean, we're not doing this at 18, 20 years old, doesn't seem like, it seems like you're these to 60s to 70s and we're
Hmm.
talking about having a kennel and
Lots of
breeding.
boomers. Lots of
Yeah.
boomers in there. Boomer breeders, Yeah, from a t-shirt. But, like I say, it's just like you just have to give it serious thought, have a plan in place, stick to the plan, you know, stick to the plan. Don't make emotional, rational, rash decisions, on long-term type of things like that. And do all you can, have as much fun as you can, make as much money as you can, do win as many ribbons as you can. You'll never regret what you did do, but while you own the dogs, the obligation and responsibility owns you back. And while they can bring you a lot of good, they can also get you arrested. So if you don't want to end up in a squad car cuffed, you know I mean, think about that really hard, kind of have a plan, see how that actually looks.
All right. I think we kind of hammered that home. That was a good episode.
Absolutely.
All
All
right.
right,
If you guys
everybody, we'll
have any
see you on number
questions,
40.
yeah, number 40 next week. If you guys have any questions on this, hit us up on the Tackbox Podcast Facebook group. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or your favorite podcast network. And we will catch you guys all on the next episode. Have a great day.